Have you ever caught yourself thinking, wait, how did I end up here again? Not in the same place physically, but in the same feeling. A different year on the calendar. Maybe a different job, different people, different plans. And yet, somehow, the same doubts, the same hesitation, the same quiet sense that you're not really moving forward, just circling. It's not a dramatic breakdown. There's no obvious moment where everything falls apart. It's subtler than that. It's the strange realization that your life looks fine from the outside. But inside, something feels stuck on repeat. And the hardest part is this. You don't quite know how to explain it to anyone. Because what would you even say? Nothing is technically wrong. No crisis. No disaster. Just that lingering question you keep waking up with. Why does everything feel so familiar? Why do I keep ending up here? No matter how hard I try to move forward. If you've ever felt that, I need you to know something. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not lacking willpower or discipline. What's actually happening is far more subtle and far more human. There are invisible patterns in the way you think about yourself, patterns so familiar that they feel like who you are. And they've been quietly steering you back to the same emotional address for years. Today, we're going to look at 6 of those patterns. Not to judge them, not to fix them with some quick solution, but to see them clearly, maybe for the first time. Because sometimes, the only way out is through understanding what's been keeping you in. The first trap is one that almost no one recognizes because it disguises itself as responsibility. It's the belief that you're not allowed to change until your current life is fixed. You tell yourself that you can't pursue what you actually want until you've solved all the problems in front of you, until your finances are stable, until your relationships are sorted, until you feel ready. But here's what that belief actually does. It keeps your energy endlessly tied up in maintenance mode. You're always preparing for a life you never start living. And the truth is, there will never be a perfect moment. There will never be a completely clean slate. Change doesn't happen after you've handled everything. It happens in the middle of the mess. But this trap tells you that wanting more right now is selfish, unrealistic, or irresponsible. So, you wait. And you keep waiting. And the years pass while you're still getting ready. The second trap is quieter, but it runs deeper. It's the way you've learned to speak to yourself inside your own mind. Not the big critical voice that tells you you're a failure. Most people recognize that one. I'm talking about the subtler one. The voice that says things like, "That's just not who I am," or "I'm the kind of person who doesn't do well with that." These feel like observations. They feel neutral, factual, like you're just being honest about your limitations. But they're not observations. They're instructions. Every time you say, "I'm not the kind of person who," you're drawing a boundary around your identity, and you will unconsciously shape your choices to stay inside that boundary. The self-image you carry isn't a fixed truth. It was built over time, through experiences, through things people said to you, through conclusions you made about yourself when you were too young to question them. And yet now, you treat it like a permanent diagnosis, like you're just describing reality instead of actively creating it. The third trap has to do with the strange comfort of familiar pain. This one is hard to admit, because why would anyone want to stay in something that hurts? But the mind doesn't always choose what feels good. Sometimes, it chooses what feels known. If you grew up feeling unseen, there's a part of you that learned to navigate that invisibility. It became your normal. And when someone finally does see you fully, it can feel strange, even unsafe. Not because it's bad, but because it's unfamiliar. The nervous system doesn't distinguish between safe and familiar. It just resists what it doesn't recognize. So you might find yourself unconsciously sabotaging the very things you've been wishing for, not because you don't deserve them, but because your body doesn't know how to rest in something new. And until you understand this, you'll keep wondering why you always end up back in the same emotional places. The fourth trap is something you've probably experienced without having a name for it. It's the avoidance of uncertainty disguised as practicality. When you imagine a different life, your mind immediately asks how. How would that work? How would you afford it? How would people react? And if you don't have answers to those questions, your mind treats the whole idea as invalid. It files it away under unrealistic and moves on. But this isn't logic. This is fear wearing a sensible disguise. Because no meaningful change comes with a guaranteed outcome. No one who ever built something real had all the answers before they began. Certainty is not a requirement for action. It's a comfort we demand because the unknown feels threatening, and so we choose the predictability of staying stuck over the discomfort of not knowing where a new path might lead. The fifth trap is one of the most invisible, because it's tied to how you've learned to receive love and approval. Somewhere along the way, you figured out what you needed to do to be accepted. Maybe it was being agreeable, being successful, being helpful, being strong. And you did those things so well that they became your identity. But now, you're not even sure what you actually want outside of what you think you should want. You've spent so long maintaining an image that feels acceptable that you've lost connection with the part of you that exists beyond performance. And the terrifying thing about changing is that it might mean letting go of the version of you that people have come to expect. It might mean risking their approval. And if your sense of safety was built on that approval, change doesn't just feel hard. It feels dangerous. The sixth trap might be the quietest of all. It's the belief that you've already tried everything, that your situation is somehow uniquely resistant to change, that other people can transform their lives, but you've already seen what happens when you try. This belief often forms after repeated disappointment, after efforts that didn't work out, after moments where you dared to hope and got hurt instead. And so you stopped trying, not in a dramatic way, just slowly, quietly. You lowered your expectations. You convinced yourself that acceptance was the mature response. But what you were really doing was protecting yourself from further disappointment by removing the possibility of change altogether. And in doing that, you made your stuckness feel like a conclusion rather than a chapter. If any of this felt uncomfortable to hear, that's not a sign you're failing. It's a sign something is waking up. These traps are powerful precisely because they don't feel like traps. They feel like reality. They feel like maturity. They feel like self-awareness. But they're not. They're patterns, and patterns can be seen. And once they're seen, they start to lose their grip. You've been living inside a story about who you are and what's possible for you. That story was written by experiences you didn't choose and beliefs you absorbed before you knew how to question them. But you're not required to keep living inside that story. Not because change is easy. It's not. But because the person you are now is already different from the person who built those walls. You're just still living inside the old architecture. I'm not going to tell you that everything will be different tomorrow. I'm not going to promise transformation in 30 days. What I will say is this: the fact that you're still here, still listening, still searching for words that help you understand yourself, that says more about you than any trap ever could. If this felt like something you needed to hear, maybe there's more here that could help. I'll keep making these videos as long as there are people like you willing to keep looking inward. Consider subscribing if you'd like to continue this conversation together. And whatever happens next, I hope you'll remember this. You are not your patterns. You are the awareness that can finally see them.